Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out today. It is a joy to be here in my hometown of Prescott, and to be with you to discuss this incredibly important topic. I see some familiar faces and good friends, and so I hope this will be as much of a dialogue as anything else, but you know, just by way of introduction, I am your Attorney General. I'm Kris, and I was just telling some folks, I actually learned how to read in this building. So my mom would bring me to the library every week, every week, and check out books in this library, although it does not look at all like it did when we were doing that 40 or 50 years ago. But anyway, great to be here. The terrific turnout. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for being a part of this effort inside the Attorney General's office to really focus on combating elder abuse, making sure that our elderly are not subject to both financial scams, but also to the rise of physical elder abuse. And so we've put together a presentation for you. I know there's folks in the room who are actively doing work in this area in northern Arizona, but this is really a significant focus for me as your Attorney General. I've made it a focus since taking office 20 months or so ago. Time flies. And you may have seen some of the news coming out of my office. We really beefed up the section in the AG's office that works on this. But you probably have seen some news about the work that we're doing, not only on financial exploitation, but also on physical abuse. We recently took the step of, actually I think the unprecedented step of taking over a nursing home facility in Phoenix and putting it into receivership after reports, a significant number of reports of physical abuse in that facility. That one was called Heritage Village. You might have heard about that, and we are seeking in court to put additional of their facilities into receivership, essentially taking it away from the owners, the out-of-state owners who were neglecting care there, and essentially using it as a real estate play, which is more and more prevalent. It's really awful. And in that case, we allege that it was essentially a shell game. But we are, that's never been done in the history of Arizona, and we are trying to send a signal that we're not gonna put up with this in Arizona. And we're not gonna put up with, you know, out-of-state corporations that want to just squeeze the profits out of our long-term care facilities. We're seeing that more and more. Wall Street firms that are buying up long-term care facilities, rolling them up into one entity, then squeezing the profits out by providing inadequate care. So that's sort of, you know, one of our initiatives, but primarily today I want to talk about elder consumer scams and prevention and awareness, because obviously, you know, the most effective weapon against this is prevention, right? Preventing it from happening in the first place. And so we are traveling across Arizona, we'll be traveling across Arizona talking about this, spreading the word, making sure that the communities have the resources that we and other organizations, including nonprofits, have to offer. So, I don't know if this is moving or not. So we have obviously an aging population in Arizona. This chart gives you not coming up there. Sophia. Okay, but, when we can see it, what it'll show is that, pretty soon, in about the year, 2035, we'll get this figured out. In the year 2035, we're gonna see a crossover between children under 18 and adults 65 and over. Essentially, we will have more, thank you, Sophia. We will have more adults over 65 than kids, basically, in the state of Arizona. And so this trend, trend of a growing number of older Arizonans, and older folks moving into Arizona, including here in Prescott. We all know that is certainly the case. So we're gonna continue to see that. There's an increase also in life expectancy, from 68 years old to 78 years old. Good thing, obviously, but that means we're gonna have more and more folks who could potentially be the subject of a scam or elder abuse. And then, older adults, especially with cognitive defects, can become targets of these scammers and fraudsters and need to be protected. I want to talk a little bit about some of the common tactics that are used, that we are seeing in law enforcement across Arizona. The first is exploiting trust and goodwill. We know that these fraudsters and scammers are going to do their best to target people who are lonely, who really are eager for friendship, and so they exploit people's trust and goodwill. They also use emotional manipulation, especially in romance scams, and I'm going to talk about that. That is really, really a growing area of concern for us in the AG's office, and we're going to talk about that. Really, really problematic. According to the Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3, Arizona had 289 elder fraud cases per 100,000 seniors in 2023, which was the highest in the country. Highest in the country, which just shows it shows why we have to all be working together, not only from a community standpoint, from a nonprofit standpoint, but also from a law enforcement standpoint, to really aggressively tackle this problem. And one of the things that I'm doing is reaching out, as the top law enforcement officer of Arizona, I'm reaching out aggressively to our sheriffs, to our police chiefs, to say, hey, if you get a complaint about this, if you get a referral, just know that I am available to prosecute these cases. Because oftentimes what happens is, in a smaller county, the county attorney is really busy dealing with violent crime, dealing with homicide or violent crime, or other types of cases. And so these kinds of cases can fall between the cracks. And that's where an attorney general can come in and really be the agency that can prosecute these cases and go after them. But we know it's going to be continue to be a huge problem in Arizona. So I wanted to alert you all to some of the common scams affecting seniors. And frankly, let's admit this is affecting all of Arizona. But what are they? First, fake charities and sweepstakes. And unfortunately, we are seeing so much of this where these fraudsters will set up a fake charity. We've seen fake firefighter associations reaching out for money over the phone. We've seen around natural disasters, hurricanes, the recent hurricanes that hit the southeast, a lot of fake charities related to that. And of course sweepstakes. So it's really important to keep an eye on that. And the greatest tip that we can give, that we all can give to consumers is if it sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is. You know, as much as we dream of making it big, having someone tell us that we won $1 million and don't have to worry about finances anymore, that's what sort of draws people in. And so we've got to warn our loved ones about these potential scams, and just to think twice about it. Online scams, we've all seen it. You've probably seen it in your own life, right? Phishing emails that come in, and fraudulent websites. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the phishing emails. Investment fraud, just a huge amount of this going on. And important to make sure that our loved ones know that you know, they should be aware of promises of high returns with little risk. When I was a corporation commissioner, I served 2 terms on the Arizona Corporation Commission in the 2000s, and we were responsible on the Corporation Commission for prosecuting civil securities fraud. Now, as your Attorney General, I'm responsible for prosecuting the criminal securities fraud. But we see a lot of this fraud going on. We saw it when I was on the commission. The Baptist Foundation scam is one, if you remember that one, which was an affinity fraud, right, associated with a religious organization. And then of course romance scams, and this is the one that just gets me so much, and it's just awful. This is manipulations through online dating sites, and I hope you can see. This is actually one of the phishing scams. I'm going to get to the romance scams. This is kind of an example of that. You know, American Express, they sort of try to steal the logo. You know, it says there's an issue with your American Express account. How many people have seen something like this, right? Yeah, well, say yeah. You name the company. Generally, this is not going to happen. This is a legitimate company. They're not going to ask you to review your information. This is just a flat-out attempt to get you to provide them with your critical information, with your birth date, with your driver's license, with your phone number, with your social security number, which should rarely, if ever, be given out to anyone. You know, a legitimate company like this is not going to send you an email like this. So this is something that we do see increasingly in Arizona. So another one, as I said, is you know, fake charities and sweepstakes. This is a interview with someone who fell victim to a sweepstakes scam. Again, too good to be true. Don't go there. Romance scams. So what happens here? Yeah, I see the quote here. This is a quote from someone who was interviewed, I think, by the television station. I started putting the pieces together. I'm looking at these as red flags instead of pink roses. I said, holy, you know what, I'm getting scammed. And unfortunately, far too many Arizonans are realizing it after it's too late. And so what happens is, and I think it's happening on Facebook, on Instagram, on most social media platforms. And I've been very critical, by the way, of social media platforms like Facebook for not being more aggressive in policing themselves. I'm also on a separate matter suing Facebook and Meta for essentially addicting our kids to online platforms. So I am one of the AGs across the country who entered into a lawsuit against Meta for their addictive algorithms, and so we'll see how that goes. But they also have done a really bad job, I think, of policing these scams, and a terrible job also, again, on an unrelated matter, but a terrible job of preventing what's going on at our southern border, where kids are increasingly being lured to the border on Facebook by the Mexican drug cartels to act as mules to bring people and drugs across the border and into Arizona. That is actually happening. And I am gonna do everything I can to name and shame these social media companies that fail to stop that from happening. They hide behind something called Section 230, but it's really bad. But anyway, getting back to romance scams, you know, what will happen, what we're seeing is someone will reach out to an individual who might be lonely, recently widowed, and, you know, strike up a conversation on Facebook, and, you know, friend requests them, then strike up a conversation continues, you know, a person feels as though a relationship is blossoming. All of a sudden, that scammer is saying, we're in a relationship, I love you, you're the one. And then, next thing you know, that person is asking the victim for money. And oftentimes, they're not just asking for money, because they don't want to meet in person, because it's highly unlikely that they're actually living in Arizona. It's more likely they're in another country. They're gonna ask for a wire transfer, or they're gonna ask for the money via Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. And those are real red flags. And it is so hard, if not impossible, to get the money back from a law enforcement standpoint, if it gets sent by wire transfer, or by Bitcoin, or by cryptocurrency. That's why they ask for it that way. And, you know, just to give you a sense, we have law enforcement tools that allow us to actually see wire transfers going out of Arizona and into other countries. And it's devastating. We see so many wire transfers going out of places like Sun City to Nigeria. And you know what that means. We know what's going on there. I can't tell you how shocking it is, but we can see it. Literally, we can see it. And so, and that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this. Is like, we have to stop it before it happens. Because once it goes to Nigeria, the Attorney General of Arizona is gonna have a very difficult time getting that back for those victims. We're gonna have a very difficult time getting that money back. Really, regardless of where it ends up, but we gotta stop it. So if you have a loved one that you're worried about, it's in a conversation with somebody, and you're like, what's going on there? You know, feel free to you know, ask some questions. Hey, who is this person? Have you met this person? Have you actually talked to this person? Those are the kinds of things that hopefully you can do, and just be aware of it for your own purposes.
They're putting the pieces together, and I'm looking at these as red flags instead of pink roses. I said, holy, I am getting scammed.
To protect this victim's identity, we're calling her Kelly. She's a successful businesswoman in Glendale, yet this became her nightmare reality.
How much money did you give him to invest?
$89,000.
And have you lost all of that?
In my opinion, technically, yes, the money's not coming back. Have I learned some major lessons? Absolutely.
Kelly met a man on Facebook dating in May of 2022. He said he lived in Dubai and was an attorney for Aramco gas legal contracts. He convinced her she should invest in the company's foreign stocks, but months later,
this man still couldn't provide me proof that he had purchased the stock, so I started doing some investigation of my own. We met in person at the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas. He ends up being a blackjack dealer at the casino.
Kelly is not alone. It's the rise in romance scams like this that caught the attention of Arizona Attorney General Kris.
Just in 2021 alone, we saw more than 650 Arizonans victimized, to the tune of about $21 million in losses.
Mays says most of these scams are happening to people online who they never meet in person, but she feels major social media companies aren't monitoring themselves properly to protect users, and she plans to hold them accountable.
These are hard cases. Oftentimes the money is gone and it's really hard to trace. What I want to find out is, are those algorithms that are used by pretty much every social media company contributing to and exacerbating the romance scams?
As for Kelly, she says rather than be embarrassed, she hopes to help other women realize what's happening before it's too late.
Everyone thinks it can't happen to me until it does. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't.
Some good advice there. Kelly has filed a police report with the Las Vegas Police Department and has heard from other victims now who have allegedly been scammed by this same man. I asked the Las Vegas PD to confirm if this is an open investigation, but they did not get back to me yet. AG Mays says the best reminder here is to make sure you know who you're actually sending money to, but you're safer if you just never send any money at all. Jared and Derek.
Brianna, Wendy, thanks for that.
And oftentimes, these sort of ramp up around Valentine's Day. Obviously, you can imagine, it happens year round. It really does. So it's just devastating. And as we live longer, this is going to continue to be a problem. And we all want love, no matter how old we are. I mean, love is love, and it's something that we all seek, right? And this is what these scammers are preying upon. And now they have these social media platforms that make it easier and easier to access people without ever having set eyes on one another. And so that's what's so dangerous and difficult. Wanted to also talk about another really insidious situation that we're seeing, which is the AI generated voice cloning scams. And this is the dark side of AI that we are seeing. The scammers are using AI technology to personalize scams and mimic a loved one's voice, or to send similar personalized text messages to trick people. In some cases, to trick people into believing that one of their loved ones has been taken hostage or has been kidnapped. And all they really need is a clip of our voice, of your voice. And just think about how many of us, myself included, are putting our voices on social media through videos. We post videos all the time. We post a lot of personal information about ourselves and our kids on social media. And so all it takes is for these scammers to do this is to get a little bit of a clip of your voice, to get a little bit of information about you or your family members or your kiddos or your grandkids, and then to generate a message using your voice that says something like, this would be the voice of your child, probably, or grandchild. Grandma, I'm in trouble, I'm at NAU, they're holding me, I can't get out, a hostage, I need $25,000 and you need to send it to this person. And to give you a sense of how real this happened to someone in my office, to an attorney at the Attorney General's office who had a kiddo at NAU. That's how real this stuff is. And so, and it's just really, just imagine how insidious this is, and they're really perfecting the technology and their ability to do it. So be wary of any emergency call that comes in, asking for money to be sent right away. don't trust the voice or messages. The voices can't be imitated, as we just talked about, with AI. Hang up and call your loved one back through a trusted number, or verify the call or text. This is really important too, and I actually have done this with my own daughter, who is 11. Consider establishing a word or phrase that only your loved one knows, so that if this call comes in, you can ask the person on the other end of the phone, what's the word, right? What's the code word? And then if they can't come back with it, you know it's a cloned message, right? But they're getting so good at this that that they can continue on and make it even feel like a conversation using just a little bit of the voice that they've gotten online. And then, again, beware of high-pressure scare tactics that might come through. And the second you get one of these, report it to law enforcement, please. So warning signs of fraud and how to spot this happening to an older adult or to yourself. Unexplained changes in behavior or mood, increased secrecy about financial matters. I'll tell you, I had a friend, a good friend, who I actually served with in the Napolitano administration, so this is probably 20 years ago. And he called, and he was so embarrassed and ashamed that this had happened to him. He had been scammed out of $15,000, and truly one of the brightest people I have ever known in my life, and one of the best people in state government I've ever served with. And he was just so ashamed. And I said, hey, don't be. This happens. It happens. And we've got to be willing to report it. But, that increased secrecy about financial matters could be shame, it could be other things. Financial red flags, missing bills, unusual withdrawals from a bank account, or changes in spending patterns. And then again, unusual payment methods. Like I said, cryptocurrency, gift cards. Don't ever, if somebody asks you to pay with gift cards, don't ever do it. That is a red flag, the highest magnitude. Bitcoin, and again, wire transfers, we talked about that. And again, the key to this really is, stay informed about common scams, which we're doing today, but they are always evolving, and there's always new ones. Never give personal information, over the phone. Use secure passwords and monitor bank accounts regularly. That's really, really important. Discuss any suspicious offers with family or trusted friends. So, really, there are things that we just don't think twice about when sharing, like our birthdays or our full names, but it's really important not to overshare. Really important. I think we all have including me, so maybe some of you are better than me, have a tendency to overshare, and it's important not to do that, especially online. Again, important to keep private your social security number, banking account information, passwords. Make sure your passwords are secure. You'd be surprised how many people use password as a password. Not a good idea. Or your birthday, or things like that. And, again, social media accounts are just such a treasure trove of information for fraudsters. These are some really good resources. Obviously, our office, we take complaints in our office, both on financial elder abuse and exploitation, physical elder abuse and exploitation, and neglect cases. So we do these cases, and I have beefed up, as I mentioned earlier, the section within our both our civil division and our criminal division. So we have multiple divisions inside the Attorney General's office, the civil division, the criminal division. Sometimes these cases are gonna fall into the civil division category. Sometimes they're gonna be outright criminal fraud or criminal, physical abuse. And so we will go after them, through the criminal code versus the civil code, which has a slightly lower standard and it's easier to prove. We also have a statute, going back to some of those cases I was talking about earlier, we have a statute in place in Arizona, and this is something that I discovered when I first took office, that has literally never been used, that allows the Attorney General to sue nursing homes and long-term care facilities for millions of dollars for neglect and physical abuse, and it's never been used. And I said, what is going on? You know, why in the world would we not be using that statute to really send a signal? Some of the worst actors that we're not gonna put up with it. You know, other states are, my colleagues in other states are definitely, when they have those statutes at their disposal, they are using them. And so we are going to do that. But there are other great entities and agencies that can be helpful. The Federal Trade Commission, especially under Lena Khan, who's the head of the FTC right now, very active in this space. There is donotcall.gov, so you can get yourself off of these call lists, or at least try. I know there's a lot of frustration about whether that's always working, but definitely try to get yourself onto that do not call list. And then the Better Business Bureau is a fantastic resource. I love the Better Business Bureau because they're a great resource to check out how many complaints a company has and whether they have been flagged by the BBB as potentially fraudulent. So if somebody calls you or comes door to door, I know there's been a spike in door-to-door sales in several industries. You can call BBB to check on those companies before you do business with them. And then the credit reporting agencies are also important in that regard. So we can make sure that we provide this, can we get this information out, Sophia? Okay, to folks if you would like it. Sort of in conclusion, and then I'd love to open it up to the floor, and also happy when we finish up to answer questions about anything else going on at the AG's office that you're interested in. We're, as you know, we're real active on a lot of issues, and so happy to give you updates on some of the really key cases that we're working on right now. But with regard to elder abuse and financial exploitation, key points are be really proactive in understanding common scams and their impacts on older adults. Important to be vigilant and provide community support to our seniors. I mean, I think that's just so important, you know, as we go through this path together. It's important to be there for each other, for our neighbors, for our loved ones, for our moms and dads and grandparents. Check in on folks. It's important to check in on folks regularly, see how they're doing, see what's going on in their lives. Like these romance scams happen so often when people feel lonely, they feel like they don't have anyone around them, and I think that's why it's just so important for each of us to reach out to people, friends, neighbors, loved ones, and just see how they're doing. And then, you know, share, if you would, I would love it for you to share this information and your knowledge of scams with others. And remind your friends and loved ones and family members to be vigilant about these scams, because it's only gonna increase. And I will tell you, law enforcement is doing the best that we can to keep up with these scams, and we will continue to hit this hard. And my objective in almost all of the things that I do, especially on the law enforcement side, is to send a signal of deterrence, right? You do this and there will be a consequence, there will be a price to pay if I catch you, if we catch you. And the really devastating thing I think about so many of these scams is once the money is gone, it is so hard to catch. And if the fraudster and the scam artist is in Nigeria or Eastern Europe or wherever, it's very difficult after the fact. So we've got to get it stopped before it starts, if at all possible. So that's our presentation. I want to thank you all for being here, and then happy to take questions, and then happy to give you updates on other things that we have going on.
I'm coming with Mike. Testing, 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 testing.
Thank you for such an educational lecture. Another one that I think found recently is you'll get a phone call and the person will say, "Can you hear me?" And once you say yes, they've recorded that yes. So I have learned, and I stumble once in a while and say, "I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you." And this morning I got a text, now I'm getting text, not only political text, but saying I owe the court system $110.
Yes, that's a common one. Yeah, you know, that is thank you for bringing that up, Caroline. So it's that, if you get a text message that you owe the court system or you owe a police department money, taxes, highly likely to be a scam. Highly likely to be a scam. Do not respond to that immediately. Maybe don't even respond to it at all. That is not how government is going to reach out to you. That is not how the IRS is ever going to reach out to you. That is not how your county taxing authority is ever going to reach out to you. So yeah, that text messages, it's just a really, really dangerous area that we're seeing. I know everybody's sick of the political texts. I'm sorry. I'm not on the ballot this year, but I you know, it's never ending. So you're constantly getting stuff on your phones, but definitely if something comes in on your phone, be really careful, because it's so easy for these fraudsters to get phone numbers and to buy phone numbers.
We're gonna switch sides.
No, okay.
Go over there. Christian, I speak.
Thank you for putting this on. I got a call from a neighbor a couple blocks away, and he said that his neighbor had just been scammed, and could I recommend a fraud attorney? Of the resources you provided, what is the first thing people should do if this happens to them? Who do they call?
I would say call my office first.
Okay.
And maybe he or she won't need a fraud attorney. Do you know what kind of fraud it was, or, okay? I would think that would be, Sophia, I mean.
We recommend going to the state bar's website, reaching out to the state bar to find a fraud attorney when you call.
If they feel like they need an attorney.
Yeah.
Then definitely go to the state bar website, because they've got pro bono attorneys that could help. Or if he feels like he needs to hire one, but please also have him report that to us.
Okay.
And is it?
It's up on the screen again. I put
Okay.
it back.
And you can call that number, and we will take down that complaint, and we will start working on it for them. You know, if we can get your money back, I have a whole section of people who work for me, and they're amazing. And we get so much money back for people, we really do.
Good.
And especially on the sort of non-international scams. And, you know, and if you feel like you've been scammed by a company, call that number, because it will go directly to one of our consumer complaints officers, and we do, I don't know how many thousands, we get
A lot.
we get 17,000 complaints a year. And we process and as many of them as we can. You can imagine when the Attorney General calls these companies to say, hey, what's up with this? It kind of goes over a little better when you know, the individual is calling all by him or herself. So we try to do as much of that as we can, and oftentimes can get at least a portion of the person's money back through a settlement, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're keeping track, we're just gonna go back and forth,
Back
back
and
sides
forth.
of the room. We've got it back here.
I was wondering if you got fraud and you sent money, can they come back into your account?
If you sent money, can they come back into your account? If you had given them enough of your account information, possibly. If it was just a wire transfer, I would doubt that. It would depend on the facts. But yeah, definitely be careful about giving out routing information, bank account information. I think the important thing to know is just once it's been wired out, it's so hard to get it back. Bye-bye, yeah. It's tragic, and what's even more, I mean, it's just so much money, and people are losing their entire life savings. You know, people, you know, work so hard throughout their lifetime. They work hard to save enough money to retire on, you know, move to God's country here in Prescott, and then lose money to a fraudster. I mean, it's just tragic.
Hi, I'm Ann Friday. I moved to Prescott 10 years ago. Thank you for coming today. My issue's right in my neighborhood, and it's not so much financial. It's my homeowners association, and I know that the AG's office often gets referrals from the Fair Housing Act. And in fact, one of the problems we're having with my homeowners association is the open meeting law. And you know, in order to file a complaint, you have to pay $500 just to file the complaint with the Arizona Department of Real Estate. And unless your complaint is sustained, you will get your money back if it is. Otherwise, you would lose it. So, for instance, our board had an email meeting not long ago trying to get $5,000 approved for HB 2648, which you may be familiar with. It's the assessment definition, where assessments, annual assessments of your homeowner association are foreclosable. If you have a regular vegetation violation, a fine, those are, you have to go through a court hearing and get a judgment lien. So this $5,000 that they tried to sneak through in this email meeting, which was illegal because it wasn't an emergency, was to an attempt, but they won't say this. It's an attempt to get predatory HOA attorneys to be able to foreclose on your property if you become delinquent in vegetation violations, which back in 2005, that was prohibited. But anyway, in order to bring this complaint that the email meeting was illegal, it would cost me $500. So I don't know how much your office can do about that sort of thing. But to improve that process would be very helpful to us seniors, because I learned to read before you did. I learned to read 80 years ago. I love it. And the other issue we have is the boards are so, our board is, no offense, predominantly male, and women, especially senior women, when we bring an issue forward, they say we're lying. And this just happened last week. And, you know, this is very stressful. So many of my neighbors won't go to the meetings, they won't get involved because they fear retaliation. If they complain, then they could get a vegetation violation. And so 3 years ago, before the Attorney General's office was Madam Attorney General, it was Mr. Attorney General. And I filed a fair housing complaint for harassment along with 2 of the other female members, seniors. And the AG's office did a good job on the investigation, but it came back and now we had insults in emails, we had recorded insults, and saying back then we were lying. It came back insufficient evidence, but it did give a gentle rebuke to the board that we're not saying you did everything perfectly. And that was it. I thought, how much do we have to put up with? So I didn't go to meetings for over a year. Well, recently we've had a financial issue arise, and when we brought it up last week, we were accused of lying again. And so this is very stressful on us to try to participate. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Arizona Homeowners Coalition, Dennis Legier, but he has worked with us, he's been helping us. And he asked me to ask you, as part of the governor's, let's see, let me get it straight. Governor's administration, would you encourage or persuade the governor to get a task force started to work with him on some of the senior issues? Because he agrees that seniors in these abusive boards are targeted. And we're also in a budget deficit, and they keep raising our assessments and keep spending more and more money, especially on legal fees.
Well, I'm glad that we have someone in the back of the room taking copious notes on what you just said from our team at the AG's office. That you raised some fascinating issues, and this is why I love doing town halls, because we always learn something new.
And if I could add, like 3 weeks ago, I copied your office, Kris, on an email, because this board has claimed that Selena Bliss, our representative, has offered to get involved with their actions and present this statement of ambiguity to the governor's Regulatory Review Council.
Correct.
And I happen to know Representative Bliss, so I called her, and she was not happy. She was happy to meet. She did meet with the board. She was happy to do that. She has no further involvement. She said it was outside her legislative role, and so she was not happy that they're misrepresenting her role.
Yeah. Well, a couple thoughts, and I want to go back to the office and talk to some of our attorneys about this. A couple thoughts. With regard to the $500 fee, I happen to represent the real estate department as the Attorney General. They're one of my clients. So the Attorney General represents almost all state agencies. That's something that, and I have a good relationship with the head of the real estate department. That's something maybe I could talk to her about. We could talk about that and the barrier that is causing. We can also discuss the possible open meeting law violation. And then with regard to the other piece, the housing, the discrimination piece, we actually have a housing discrimination initiative at the AG's office. That's also extremely important to me. I know HOAs have been the bane of a lot of people's existences for many years, and there's a lot of different issues with regard to HOAs, but it's something that I'm definitely, and we have an elder task force that maybe, Sophia, this is something we could take up.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I wonder if me and you and the gentleman you mentioned from the Housing Association, if we could have a conversation
Yeah.
and maybe move that forward. I'm the Director of Community Engagement, really happy to be here with you guys today.
Yes. Sophia, yeah, so these are all things I think we'd be interested in looking into, and I appreciate you bringing them forward. And then lastly, with regard to Representative Bliss, what I would say back to her, and I can have this conversation, or you can have this conversation with her, is there may be legislation that we need to put forward, that we need to pass on this issue, and she could lead on that. She or Kwong, win, or well, whoever, I mean, I guess whoever wins, I should say. There is an election, and whoever wins the Senate race, but, I should say, whoever wins can put forward that legislation next year.
As we speak, Representative Bliss and Wynn are at City Hall presenting on recent legislation.
Okay.
And my husband has gone there.
Oh, you're splitting duties.
Well, at the same time.
That's smart, yeah.
And he has asked them to please explain this House Bill 2648. They both voted for it.
Uh-huh.
And we don't believe that it creates the problems our board is claiming it does, if they need $5,000 to investigate.
That's so interesting. Okay, we'll take a look.
And
Thank you.
mind if my neighbor speaks next?
It's connected.
Is it connected? Okay, yeah, let's keep going on that topic then.
Hi, Bonnie Roselle, and I'm in the same HOA. I have background in financial, and so I brought up a lot of issues regarding, why are we spending all this money? Well, since I have background for many years, I'm used to harassment, let's say, but we hopefully grew out of it and in the corporate world. But this HOA, when I brought up specific issues like external audits, why are we spending this money on HOA attorney who's opposed to the HB Bill 2648, when we have Dennis Leger, the author, who can give us this information for free and come up here anytime to answer our questions. I was called, well, not only me, some other lady, that what we represented was falsehoods, which is in essence calling me a liar. I don't appreciate that, and so I will be on their back because I don't like to be abused. So, anything to add to that?
No, thank you for those comments, and you've given us a lot of fodder and food for thought, and I think Sophia will be in touch with you about what my office can do. And thanks for the information that Brnovich did address something. We'll go back and take a look at that.
I saw an issue. Can I tell it real quick?
Can we come back to you on that? Okay, all right.
Thank you.
All right, because we got some folks over here.
Yes, back to elder stealing. With credit reports, do you advocate freezing of the credit line?
Can you say again?
On credit report agencies?
Yeah.
Do you advocate freezing the credit line for everybody's accounts? You can freeze
Yes.
your account.
Yes.
So that nobody can get
Yes.
into your accounts and open a new credit.
Yes, that's a very important tool. Yes, absolutely.
We'll go back to
John. Oh, we're gonna go back, I'm sorry.
Go back.
Violating the rules.
Hi.
There we go.
Hi, my name is Vicki. I have 3 close friends and a sister who've been scammed, but my recent one is one of my best friend's moms on Facebook really believes she's dating Elton John. I know, but it's really crushing her because when she talks to her mother, and her mom's only like 70, She is insistent she's in this relationship with Elton John, and she has sent thousands of dollars. She's only on Social Security. Once my girlfriend found out, she called Facebook or contacted Facebook because it was a fake celebrity page. I'm not familiar with that. So she got Facebook to shut it down. But when she talked with her mom and had this conversation, you know, Mom, you're getting scammed, she was like, oh no. In fact, he's flying in his jet to the airport on Friday, and he's coming to the house and we're going out. And when my friend said to her on Saturday, was Elton here? And you do know he's gay and has a husband, right? And she was like, oh no, we are in love, and it's his management company that's asking for the money. It's not Elton, and yes, he was here, which, you know, international plane landing at Love Field, probably not. But, so my friend cannot convince her that this is not real. So she contacted Facebook. I think she contacted the police. They didn't really do anything, and she's not sure where to go next. And now, when she reaches out to her mom, it's almost like a formula of what they've told her mother to say to the daughter, like, oh, I'm doing fine, you don't need to talk to me, you don't need to contact me. So she's really worried. They've got her hooks, their hooks are in, and she doesn't know who she should report it to.
See, that's, yeah, and that's one of the, such a sad story, but also not unusual. And that's why I'm out doing these town halls, is to spread the word. And you know, at some point, it may become necessary for your friend to get a guardian for her, or, you know, to start thinking about, you know, what steps she can take to make sure that she's not further victimized. That's something that I think if she, you know, we can help walk your friend through potential options. You know, I think, what else, Sophia?
Yeah,
What other
and-
resources?
And the victim doesn't need to be the one who reports the scammer. If your friend can get access to any kind of the messages the person is sending, she can report them.
She got some text messages off her daughter's phone, it was her grandma, so she was able to get some of the proof, but her mom is kind of normal. I mean, she doesn't have any dementia or any problems.
Yeah, sure, and yeah. So I think we might potentially be able to help by going after the scammer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So call your main number, the Phoenix.
I would say call the main number.
I'll come up to you after too and give you
Yeah.
the direct resources you need.
Great question though, and again, another example of just how pervasive this is becoming, both with folks who are experiencing dementia and folks who are not, just experiencing loneliness. And that's what's so dangerous about this sort of toxic combination of loneliness and social media platforms that are not doing enough to police it, really, on the front end. John?
Thank you, Madam Attorney General, for doing this. Love to see you. Can you tell us about the size of the AG's office, number of attorneys, supporting staff, whether you have enough money? And
Never.
And how do you spend your time between lawyering and administration?
Great question. So the Attorney General's office has roughly 1,000 employees. I think we are actually authorized FTEs about 1,200 employees, but the legislature has not funded us adequately, actually for quite a while. I've worked really hard. My predecessor did not do a very good job of keeping the office staffed and worrying about salaries for our attorneys and paralegals and staffers. And so we saw a real brain drain and a real exodus of people from the AG's office to places like the Alabama County Attorney's Office or the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, which are paying lawyers a lot more money. So one of the things I did was to really prioritize trying to get people back and get all of our divisions fully staffed. Our criminal division is now went from, I think, 60% staffed to now 100% staffed. And almost same with our civil division. Our child and family protective division, which is the division, really one of the most important divisions, but least talked about, which is the attorneys for DCS and works on child abuse cases, was 50% vacant when I arrived. That's what my predecessor had allowed to happen. And so 1,000 lawyers, I'd say probably 500-600 lawyers, and then the rest paralegals and staff. We also have 60, well, we'll call it 80 criminal investigators, both criminal and civil. Those are law enforcement agents, those are essentially police officers. I have a small police department inside my building, which is helpful when you are trying to investigate these cases. And so we are really even we're asking our agents to put a premium on helping us investigate elder abuse both on the civil and the criminal side, and that's how we're helping to make some of these cases. And then, how do I spend my time? Great question, John. I work well. I will tell you this, as you know, I work really hard. I love my job. I love this job. I think it is probably the best job in state government. Never thought I would say that. I grew up here in Prescott dreaming of being governor someday, but I think I may have the better job already. So, I spend a lot of my time focusing on areas like this, protecting. My number one objective is to protect Arizonans, whether that's in, dealing with elder abuse or dealing with our water crisis. Many of you know I've been very vocal about water and some of the insanity that the previous administrations have allowed, including allowing the Saudis to suck an unlimited amount of water out of western Arizona. I am very close to suing the Saudis for damage and negligence, or damage and nuisance that they've caused out there. Same situation down in southeast Arizona where we've allowed a Minnesota based dairy, apologies for anyone from Minnesota, but a Minnesota based dairy called Riverview to come in, plunk down 600 wells and de-water the wells of everyone around them. And it is staggeringly bad. And these are, I've held, not to get off on a tangent here, but you asked what I said. I've done 2 of these kinds of town halls, both in Cochise County on that situation and in Wendon on the Saudis. It's not just Saudis, by the way, it's the United Arab Emirates that also have a farm out there, a alfalfa farm. So we're allowing them to grow alfalfa and ship it back to Saudi Arabia, where they have made that illegal because they ran out of water. So what I've said is we have to stop playing the fool in Arizona, and that is what we have done in previous years. And so we did 2 town halls in both of those areas. 200 people, more than 200 people turned out for both of them. I would imagine the vast majority of the people who turned out for those 2 town halls were Republicans. I don't care what party you're in. My job is to protect you and to work for you. You're my boss. That's the way I view this job. You're my boss. And what they said to me it was in Pierce, Arizona, which is near Wilcox, and they said, Kris, you're the first attorney general to ever come to Pierce. And they didn't care whether I was a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. They just cared that I was there talking about this issue that matters to them. So I spend my time on, I would say, on consumer fraud, which elder abuse I would put in that category, protecting our water supplies, going after a fentanyl crisis. We have a major fentanyl issue in Arizona. more than 50% of all the fentanyl seized in the United States in the last 2 years was seized in Arizona. That's just what we seized. And though folks may not know this, my office does many, if not most, of the major drug investigations in Arizona, in conjunction with local law enforcement. And so we're really busy on that front, and I will tell you, we still have a lot of work to do to get a handle on that. Along with Senator Kelly, I took the vice president down to the border recently for her trip to the border, and we sat down with the local sheriff, Sheriff Daniels, who's a friend of mine. Talked to Sheriff Rhodes a lot about this issue too, because it's affecting all of Arizona. And said, and I think the vice president did a great job of talking about it, and frankly, she knows about it. She was the AG of California, so she was in my shoes and worked on this same issue. But it is definitely something we have to do a better job of getting our hands around. And then let's see, what else? You name it. You name it, and it comes across my desk, and it's fascinating. Just an absolutely fascinating and job, and I'm blessed and lucky to come to work every day. And my view, and this was true when I was a corporation commissioner, is that every single moment that I get to serve in a public office is a precious moment, and I cannot waste it. And so we work really hard, and I'm demanding of myself and of our staff, and we have a certain amount of time to get stuff done on behalf of you all, and that's the way I try to look at it. Okay.
Wow, thank you so much. This is really great. This seems so simple, and things are so complicated now with the internet and everything. But in the last 30 years, I have had workmen as a single woman. Well, I haven't been single for 30 years, but as an older single woman, do things that were not right. One was Roy Jacuzzi, actually. But one thing that has worked for me that is pretty simple is to be polite but assertive, and I would call and say, if this isn't taken care of in the next 24 hours, I will have to contact the Better Business Bureau and also the Attorney General's office.
Good, that's a good.
And so I called Roy Jacuzzi, and he didn't answer, of course. But I told his secretary, if you don't take care of this soon, in the next 24 hours, I will have to contact the Attorney General's office in California and in Arizona and the Better Business Bureau. Well, let me tell you, you tell that you fax them that letter or email it to them that you're gonna send, and you get results pretty quick if they're a legitimate company, because they don't want that to happen. So don't be, don't stand back if you're an older woman. Be aggressive and assertive, polite, but I tell you, you guys have got balls. Have balls. No, really, you have to stand up for yourself.
Sure, and I think that it's absolutely important to let folks know, hey, I'm gonna call the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General has a consumer fraud and consumer complaint line, and feel free to drop my name all you want. I mean, that is what it's all about. That's why we're here. And, I was mentioning the 15,000 complaints. That's, those are 15,000 complaints about, businesses or entities or individuals who a person believes has not done a good job or, has dropped the ball, so to speak. We had a case recently where we settled with a shutter company, I think, and got $75,000 back for people, multiple individuals. So those kinds of cases, we do small to huge.
Oh, good.
Small to huge, yeah. I mean, trying to think of some of the huge, well, I'll tell you about a huge case. that I'm doing. John had asked about what I spend my time on. This is another big one that we're doing, and it's just outrageous. I am suing a software company called RealPage, which we allege has been colluding with 9 major landlords largely in Phoenix and Tucson, and maybe Flagstaff, but Phoenix and Tucson. And using an algorithm, this company RealPage spits out for all of these landlords a set price that they are all supposed to charge for rent. Now, that is called old-fashioned price fixing using new technology. And it is affecting our economy in Arizona. Those 9 landlords controlled by using this RealPage software, and again, the inputs include incredibly proprietary data about apartment units, square footage, location, what the last renter paid, other information that if you were a real competitor, you would never give up to your competitors, right? But they're giving it up to each other and to the software company that then spits out a rent, and then everybody is to abide by it. And what that means is there is no competition anymore in the apartment rental markets in Phoenix and Tucson. Those 9 major landlords control, using this software, RealPage, control 70% of the apartment units in Phoenix. More than 50% of the apartment units in Tucson. And so people have been seeing this sort of steady rise in rent. We all know it before, maybe you have children kids who are trying to get into the housing market or get into apartments, and they're like, why is my rent going up every month? Well, the rent is going up every month because RealPage is spitting out a rent that everybody is abiding by. And they tell the folks who manage these apartment complexes, do not deviate from this, and sometimes people get fired for deviating from that price. And so I sued those 9 landlords and RealPage, and we were the first state in the country to sue them under our antitrust laws. Yes, we have antitrust laws in Arizona. They haven't been used in a long, long time, and our Consumer Fraud Act as well. And the hope is to get a lot of renters, hopefully, at least some of the money back that they lost as a result of increasing monopolization of apartment housing in the valley and in Tucson, and it's happening in the housing industry as well, with more and more private equity investors coming and buying up houses as well. So that's an example of a very big case. The AG of the District of Columbia also brought the case, and as a result of our 2 cases, now the Department of Justice has launched a criminal investigation of RealPage.
I want to ask you one more question.
Yes.
What do you do if somebody steals your political sign out of your yard? And I told the person to call the police, and if they found out, to prosecute them, because because I encourage people not to be scared. I encourage people I know it's a hard thing, but have courage. Look at some of the people who have such courage,
Yeah, well, as someone who once had one of my political signs lit on fire, strange things happen. That was when I was a corporation commissioner, literally, in Scottsdale. Somebody lit my sign on fire, and somebody really, really didn't like me. I think probably it's not likely that the police department is gonna have the time to deal with that, but I do think it's important to stand up for yourself, to your point, and you know, stuff like that is happening. I was just reading actually online, there's a situation going on right now down in the valley in which police are investigating a strange substance that was put up along with some signs on some trees. And it's, they've got hazmat crews out looking at it. And so, and we had, you know, one of the things, I will say this, on a serious note, although that's, you know, serious because it's escalating levels of misbehavior. One of the things that with regards to the election, that I've been very, very clear about, and will continue to be clear about between now and the election, is that we will not tolerate violence against our elections officials. Period. And if Adrian Fontes were here as Secretary of State, he would tell you that 2/3 of all of our counties have seen a top elections official resign as a result of a threat of violence or death, including one here in our county. Yes, the prior elections director. And that is very dangerous to the fabric of our democracy, and we cannot have that. And I will, if anyone engages in a death threat against an election official, a county supervisor, or engages in violence against them, I will prosecute them, period, full stop. And so we can't let that happen, and we're not putting up with it. And on the other end, you probably saw yesterday we had a supervisor down in Cochise County plead guilty to and we're prosecuting 2 supervisors in Cochise County to failing to certify or delaying the certification of the vote in Cochise County. You know, I think it's important again to send a signal that we're not going to put up with any shenanigans when it comes to the certification of our vote, or any attempts by anyone to prevent your votes from counting. So we're, yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna continue, look, we run great elections in Arizona. We have a fantastic election system. We have vote by mail. It was pioneered, it's almost practically pioneered in Arizona. It's actually pioneered by Republicans. Yeah, I mean, Republicans were the folks who initially sort of pioneered it and used it more. Now it's sort of flipped. But regardless, more than 80% of us use vote by mail. And we do a great job, I think, in this state of putting on elections. And we're gonna, it's partially my job and the governor's job and the Secretary of State's job to make sure that continues. James?
Let me stand up, I'm tired of sitting. I had 2.
Pretty close to your mouth.
Be careful.
Whoops.
Oh, yeah, careful, there you go.
Anyway, I had 2 questions or comments. You're talking about giving away information that could be used against you. When you Google a name of a business or whatever, just to get their phone number or whatever, most often the official site is at the bottom, and you can easily call one of the ones at top. And when they ask you all kinds of questions, your information is out there, maybe to a big company. It seems like there would be something that could be done about all those sites that are not official for that business. The other is about grocery stores. You mentioned Fry's and Safeway.
Yeah.
I have a real issue with the way they advertise, as do a lot of other people. Not only should you not have to download for every item, but the price that they advertise, and a lot of people don't see, like me, must buy 3, must buy 10, in small print. If you buy one, you go out the store, pay the price that is not advertised, there should be something about having bigger print, you must buy 10, you must buy 3, and not walk out the door paying more than what you thought you were going to.
That is such a great question, and it's something that I've been urging my staff to start taking a look at. James, by the way, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of things, but two things. I want to update you on the Kroger-Albertsons merger situation. As you know, as your Attorney General, I officially entered Arizona in opposition to it. So we are suing to oppose that merger. I think it's bad for consumers, bad for Arizona. I think it will drive up pharmacy deserts in our state and food deserts in our state. I think we will lose jobs as a result of it. Those two companies employ 35,000 Arizonans, and they have 250 stores, Fry's and Safeway and Smith's up in northwestern Arizona. And as the daughter of a pharmacist, I am particularly concerned about pharmacy deserts. You know, as you know, increasingly people get their pharmaceuticals inside a grocery store, at a grocery store, in a pharmacy in a grocery store. So the trial just concluded. So we joined with the FTC in opposition to that merger. The trial was in federal court in Oregon. We feel good about how it went. Lena Khan, the head of the FTC, was in my office about a week ago. We were talking about it. She feels good about it, but we'll see. You know, I don't know how that's going to go. And then two of my AG colleagues in Washington State and Colorado are separately suing to oppose that merger in their states. So it's a good, I think, strategy to have all of our bases covered. We'll see. I just think there's just too much consolidation going on out there in general. So I intend to continue to use our antitrust laws and our Consumer Fraud Act to fight that consolidation where I think it is hurting consumers. We'll see where that merger goes. James, great idea, great point about the small print. The other thing I'm worried about with regard to some of these grocery stores, including Kroger, is the decision by them to start using surge pricing. And so surge pricing is, so you think about it, sort of like when you get an Uber at a certain time of day and they charge you more. Grocery stores are now thinking about doing surge pricing. Yeah, I know, it's really weird, isn't it? It's like super weird. And super, I think, ripe for abuse. And I think the last thing we need in this country right now is to have to deal with surge pricing on our groceries. So gonna be kind of taking a close look at that. I think they're gonna argue that somehow surge pricing helps them get you better deals. I have a hard time believing that, but we'll see. James, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I just had to say something I meant to say. Thank you very much for being the kind of person you are in all of the years that you've been in public service. You're very proactive, you're very, very professional, and I believe a whole lot of people have benefited from your office.
Thank you, James, I appreciate that. That's sweet. Thank you.